everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk a little bit about change and transition. Now, change can take place on so many different levels. It can be individual, it can be social, it can be organizational, and so on. I'm going to touch on mainly organizational change today, even though there are links to individual change and to the mindset and motivation of change and transition as well. As always, if you like the content of these videos, please like them, subscribe to the channel, add your comments. It would be lovely to hear from you as well. Now, first of all, I think it's worth having a look at what is actually change and what is transition, and is there a difference between the two terms? First of all, change is usually something that happens very suddenly. It's often external, meaning you are not really in control of it. It can feel very unexpected. It can be short term, sometimes long term, but it can be a very quick thing that happens, and it may therefore not really create a transformation. It may just be something that happens, and then you go back to your old way of living, really. A transition, on the other hand, is something that often happens slowly. It's internal, meaning it's a change in your mindset. So mostly you're in control of it, and it happens when you're ready for it. But it can also be very long term. Sometimes it can be years when you feel you are in a little bit of a limbo. Things feel very uncertain. You can't really see a clear road ahead. But it usually causes or creates a transformation, so a new approach to things, a new way of living, maybe even. Now, there are some quite interesting publications on change out there, but just to mention a few, this one deals with internal transformation or change, really, more than anything. It's William Bridges' Managing Transitions, and I'm sure you have heard of it. He describes three phases, really, where the first one is really the ending. So it's about letting go of the old ways, and you end an old way of living. And then comes this going through an in-between phase where you can feel very confused and nothing is really clear. You can't really see where you're going yet. And then you come out of the transition and you're ready to make a new beginning. So this is where you really start the new journey. A really interesting publication on organizational or social system change I have found is Richard Slaughter's The Transformative Cycle. This is a really interesting theory. Richard Slaughter is a futurist, so a researcher of future studies. And there were some really interesting publications and articles coming out of the Foresight Institute. So if interested, do have a look at those. The transformative cycle essentially seeks to define four phases that every innovative concept has to go through. So first there is a problem, and that causes a breakdown of meanings, really. So breakdowns can be seen as problems, and they are therefore dysfunctional. Now, when a breakdown occurs, there will be many ideas and proposals of reconceptualizations for change that can happen through a range of media or different approaches and practical solutions. They do not necessarily concern the future, but they often set out to offer future solutions to what may be considered a problem or a breakdown. Now, new ideas will inevitably cause conflict and require negotiation of some sort. Some conflicts will never reach the stage of negotiations because to negotiate requires that two opposite sides are willing to listen to each other's opinions and really regard each other as equals. So the path from conflict to negotiation can be very long and very complex. Often ideas will have to be given up or changed or modified along the way. Now, the selection is really essential to the implementation of new ideas or concept because often there are generated far more ideas or proposals than can be taken up. But the selection criteria cannot be guaranteed to be either fair or adequate in any social system or in an organization, for example. So therefore, it's not necessarily the best ideas or proposals that are taken forward and adopted. Often, it is the ideas that have been accepted by the majority. So the process will often serve particular interests and validate meanings that already work for the majority. Another very interesting thing to look at is why is it that changes in organization or change in social systems fail? And there can be a lot of learning in looking at this as well. The senior executive in change management, Torben Rick, has identified some of the most common pitfalls in organizational change, and he summarized them in 6 points. First of all, the failure to make a compelling case for change. Now, a team or staff, for example, within an organization will need to make sense and feel the need for change before they are willing to change anything. And often we find that management or leaders are so focused on getting the content right that they dive into new projects without actively planning for how, when, and what are the questions around change here. Another thing is failure to involve. For most organizations, a top-down approach still applies. So often staff has to deal with change on their own without adequate support or explanation. And this does not, of course, spark any kind of ownership or sense of responsibility for new initiatives. Failure to understand and shape the current informal culture. Now, this often results in ignoring the current organizational structure and ignoring looking at essential features of what works now and what does not work. So an essential point, for example, here are resources and also lack of resources. It's very essentially about asking, do we have the proper resources as an organization to incorporate these new changes or these new initiatives? The fourth point is failure to understand that real change happens at the bottom of an organization. Major organizational changes never really happen during executive meetings or, for that sake, during a coffee break. It has to be implemented at all levels of an organization and starts really at the bottom. Leaders often tend to focus on system changes and not on the people that have to make those changes and live with them. So therefore, change can often feel imposed or forced for a team or for staff members. Another really important thing to remember here is that human nature is programmed to resist change. Essentially, this develops from a fear of the unknown and insecurity towards new approaches. So an organization has to deal actively with resistance in order to overcome this. A really important point also is the failing to celebrate small wins. Now, often when embarking on, for example, a new project work, each step of a project is regarded as a natural or an expected development, even though it might have caused a lot of work and a lot of changes in itself. And often I think we're also so busy in our everyday life that we simply forget to celebrate how far we have come already. So pausing and really having a look at, okay, how far have we actually come already, and celebrate those small wins are incredibly important in the journey of change and of transformation. A really interesting case study to look at here is the Point People, who are a collective of designers, social innovators, artists, entrepreneurs, technologists, writers, researchers, and so on, who seek to build and nurture and connect network from all sectors to drive system change and innovation. And one of their projects was called System Changers. And it sought to collect and research information from frontrunners in social change and innovations. So although the frontrunners came from many different backgrounds, they found 6 shared insights that all seemed to be crucial for implementing an innovative system change mindset. And just to go through them quickly, collaboration is vital to system change. There are a lot to gain from collaboration, but it is vital to outline exactly what kind of collaboration you are seeking, how you can contribute, and what you expect from potential partners from the very start of a partnership. And narrative is crucial. So narratives help people understand how the system they exist in is constructed socially and culturally. And narrative can help people become aware of how to support a failing system or how to develop a stronger one. Theory and practice need to be linked. Behind any kind of partnership development or system change lays a wish and a commitment to learn and become better. This can only be done by looking at previous examples, adapt your system to new practices, and to be willing to try new approaches. A system change involves liminal spaces, so every innovator needs to be able to move in and out of a system they are trying to change or develop. Even when they are outside the system, they still need to keep a dialogue with the system. So a liminal space can hold unstable groups of people together in a shared pursuit of change. System change looks more like a movement than like a change decided or designed from top down or bottom up. So system changes have to understand how many different points of interventions can be carried out at the same time and align many different interests with a shared goal. A system changer is unafraid of the unknown. Now, actually, they have to embrace uncertainty. Even in the most complex systems, it is vital to be able to identify key points of innovation, a desire to understand the system, and that action needs to be taken even without having the entire map laid out. Now, these 6 insights also spark some questions worth considering around, is system change to be viewed as revolutionary or is it an evolution? It is also important to remember that change is a natural development, not just for organizations, for teams, for social systems, but for human beings individually as well as socially. Now, I began by trying to define the differences between change and transition, really. And in a way, it makes sense that human nature is sort of programmed to resist change, because change can stand for something that's unexpected, sudden, even a bit dangerous, something that might be unwanted, whereas a transition is a change in your mindset. It's a movement towards something that's positive and happens when you are ready for it. An interesting aspect I find is that in a way, for a transition to happen, it requires motivation or a sense of feeling motivated more than ever. And I think whether it be something that happens to you as an individual, something you are going through, or it happens within a team, for example, at work, within an organization, it's essential that you feel a sense of support and encouragement. And essentially, this boils down to a sense of trust. You need to feel trusted before motivation kicks in. So I can't help but think that what lots of employers and organizations should do in order to get their employees to embrace change and transitions more really is to implement a sense of trust, a sense of support and encouragement more than ever. When you feel that, you also naturally become braver and more motivated for embracing new ideas and initiatives.